Expert, back again for another Q&A video. Thank you very much for tuning in. And just a couple of little things. We haven't had some Q&A videos uploaded in a little while. We've had some few internal kind of changes that are going on, and been really busy being out on the road, which we'll share in a couple of videos. And also, another thing is I'm wearing a jacket. It's very, very cold here today in Sydney. I think it's about 10 degrees out there, but also it's an exciting jacket because it's a special 30-year celebration jacket. So I wanted to show that off as well. As we said before, this is our 30th year in business. We're very excited that we're still in business after 30 years, after so many small businesses don't make it that far. But also we're just excited about the fact that we get to work with such a wonderful community of people and help and support them. And on that note, I want to ask for a favour from you guys. We are only 3 people away from hitting 100 subscribers. And that's really exciting for us. So we'd love you to hit that button down there, hit that subscribe button. Looks a little bit like this thing here. Hit that down there, get on board. And also, thank you very much for sending in your questions. I've got a few questions backed up and we're going to catch up on them all. But please keep sending in your questions. We love to answer them. We want to empower the community. We want to make sure everyone is safe. And we want to make sure everyone is transported in the way that they want to be transported, with all of their desires. So let's get into today's question. Today's question is around children and a child restraint. So essentially, there's a fair bit of information here with specifics about weights and so on, and I won't go into that. I'll just give you the overall sort of question. And essentially, you've got a child who's 6 years old, who's supposed to be in a booster seat. However, they're saying that this child is too tall and too heavy to be in this booster seat. So then the person, the carer, has sort of asked that from a legal person, an occupational therapist, and the therapist has sort of come back and said, no, I don't think that you can go into a different seat because the law says, and she's quoted, children from 4 years and under 7 must be in a forward-facing child restraint or a booster. And so the question has come, what do I do? This person is 6 years old, but they're reportedly too big or too heavy for the booster seat. So what do we do? Luckily, it's very easy, and I'm going to put links to everything down below as I go along, but we'll get into it. So first of all, you're right. There is, up to the age of 7, there is 3 distinct age categories for children. You have 0 to 6 months, and 0 to 6 months you have to be in a rearward-facing child restraint where your child faces out the back of the car. Then you have 6 months until 4 years. 6 months to 4 years, we have to be in a forward-facing child restraint with inbuilt harness, which is something like this. And as I show people, or I share with people, as long as it's got a little red button between the legs, you've got the right seat until you're 4 years old. Then, from 4 till 7, we've got to be in a booster seat. And a booster seat is one that uses a seatbelt that comes around the front of the child and around the front of the booster seat and sort of positions the seatbelt onto their shoulder or onto their hips. So a 6-year-old should be in a booster seat. But in this case, the 6-year-old is too tall and too heavy, so what do? Well, the law, and I'll put a link down to the law below, the law has got fine print below it. So it does say 0 to 6 months, 6 months to 4 years, and 4 to 7. It's very clear. But then under that, it's got a very small fine print, and it says, if you are too tall or too heavy for this category of restraint, then you are allowed to move on to the next category of restraint. So for example, if you are a 6-year-old, but the size of a 10-year-old, then you should be sitting in a 10-year-old seat, not in a 6-year-old seat. And what's a 10-year-old seat? That's just a standard seatbelt as per the laws. So that's the example. Another one is, let's say you are 3, but you're the size of a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. Well, you shouldn't be in one of these as a 3-year-old. That's the size of a 5 or a 6-year-old. You should be in a booster seat. So what I'm going to do is quickly give you a guideline of how I can tell if you're too tall or too heavy. Too heavy is very easy. Too heavy is basically, generally if we're too heavy, we're also a lot larger in size. So if I'm too heavy, then the straps will not fit physically around me. So as long as the straps of the restraint physically fit around my body, then I'm not too heavy for it. All right, so that's the first rule. The second rule is too tall. So every single child restraint now on the market has got dotted shoulder line markers like in here, and they determine for you and they identify for you what is your height basically for this restraint. So in this particular case, it tells me shoulders must be below this line, and that is the top line that there is. So if my shoulders are above this line, then I'm too tall for this restraint and I am legally allowed to go into the next category of restraint. Sometimes people ask us, do I then need a doctor's certificate or do I need evidence for the police of this case? We have asked the police and they've given us very clear feedback that no, you do not need evidence. You just need to know and you need to be able to explain the process and the situation of your family and of your children to the police if they pull you over. So for example, if I had a child that was their shoulder line was above here and I take them into the next restraint or into a no restraint and the police pulled me over, what I would say to them is, officer, or however you address them, my child is 3 for argument's sake, but the size of a 5-year-old, and based on the shoulder line markers on the seat, I had to go and buy my child another seat. Based on the feedback from the New South Wales Police, as long as you can explain that in that manner or similar to the police officer, then you're not going to get fined because they can understand that you know what's going on and you're in control of your child's safety, right? So that's the feedback we've received from the police. But overarchingly, what I always tell people is get to know these dotted shoulder line markers. If my shoulders are above this line, I'm too tall. If my shoulders are below this line and between these two lines, I'm in the correct seat. Similarly, if my shoulders go below this line, I'm too short and I need to be in the seat that's beforehand. All right, so that's how this works. Let's use these shoulder line markers. Let's understand how they work. Let's make sure our shoulders always are in between the two designated lines, and then we're fine. And once they're outside of the line, we need to go find a different restraint that suits our child's height. And if the straps don't fit over the child, then they're too big for that as well. All right? So hopefully that answers your question. And again, thank you very much for sending the questions. Please, please, please send those questions. We love to answer them and we want to get all that information out to the community and out to the industry. The more questions we answer, the safer people are, and that's what we're all about. And last but not least, as I said, we're at 97 subscribers. I hope this is the last time I say that. We're at 97 subscribers. Hit that button that looks like this. Let's get it to 100, and the next milestone will be 1,000 subscribers. So thanks very much for tuning in. Please share this with your friends. Thank you, and see you next time.